place in front of me, I'll be victorious. Straight up out the trenches where it's vicious, but it's glorious. Ready for whatever, never scared. We got the Lord with us in the ghetto, we notorious. This shit be breeding warriors. Anything you place in front of me, I'll be victorious. Straight up out the trenches where it's vicious, but it's glorious. Ready for whatever, never scared. We got the Lord with us in the ghetto, we notorious. This shit be breeding warriors. Anything you place in front of me.
A Starstruck podcast.
I know that's always
back at it. Once again, I am here with one of my favorite people in the world. I've had the opportunity to be around this young lady forever. We've had some great times from a coaching standpoint, from playing in our professional playing careers. We've, just crossed paths in so many different areas. So I just wanted to make sure that I brought a quality young lady on. And I told you guys that it would be great seeing this lady. All right, Mrs. Stephanie White. How are you?
Hey.
How are you, Steph?
I appreciate the young reference.
For sure. That's one of those things that we all wish for and want it back.
Right. That's right.
For sure. Yeah, I just I'm sitting here and I was thinking about, something. It's so many different things that we can talk about, but I just wanted to just bring you on and just kind of get a feel for what you've been up to, what's been going on. I know it's an off season and, about to ramp up and I'm in the middle of the season, but just wanted to bring you on and see how everything was going.
Shoot, Los, there's no off season. No off season, no downtime. No, it's it's been good. Been doing some commentating, so got up there to see you all a little bit, and just recently returned from the Carolina Duke game, enjoying some family time as well while we're sitting out here waiting for the season to begin. So trying to find a little bit more of a flow in the off season this year, but really just enjoying time with the kids and grinding it out in the broadcasting realm and getting ready for the season.
Of course. Speaking of kids and family, how are they doing? I mean, the adorable twins, my man Landon, I know everything is good, but just from your perspective, how's everything with them?
Everything's good. I mean, you know how it is. They grow up too fast. And it's every time I come back at the end of the season, they've been in school for a couple of months, and it just seems like everything changes. We got an almost 15-year-old. Got the twins are 12, and Sam is almost 13. So it's like, it's four boys in a blended family, and it's kind of crazy, but all the crazy is good. Kids all remind us every day, like, about perspective. We come back from a tough loss, and they're like, number one, why didn't you rebound better? Why didn't you play defense better? Why'd you miss your free throws? And then number two, what's for dinner? So, they humble us real quick.
That's so true. I walk in the house all the time, and it's like, obviously my children are older now, but I get the text messages, the calls. Like, man, what were y'all doing defensively today? And then,
that's right.
If you get a good win, it's like, I told you guys were going to be.
Mm-hmm.
That is so crazy. That's crazy. But I was thinking about you before we got on, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, just the beginning, Steph, the start. Like, who was Stephanie White when, you really picked up that basketball? I know basketball has been so instrumental in your life. And a lot of guests that I bring on, I really like to talk about that piece because there's so many young kids that's inspired by, our conversation and people that come on and talk about that. So where did it all start for Steph White?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've never known life without basketball. I have a picture when I was first born. I was just brought home from the hospital. My dad had me in one hand and a basketball in the other hand. So I feel like I've been doing it my whole life. Didn't play organized basketball really until about the fifth grade. We didn't have the opportunity really as young girls at that time. So I played on the boys team at the YMCA in Danville, Illinois. Played on the boys team for a couple of years, and then they decided to make a girls league after that. So I was able to get in the girls league after that. And in middle school and elementary school, I played in sixth grade, played in middle school. Got my first college letter when I was a seventh grader. And, I've always just, when you grow up in Indiana and when you grow up in the country, like I did, there's not a whole lot to do other than play ball, right? And every family get together. It's euchre and it's basketball.
Exactly.
And so that's what we did. And so it's just been something that I've known. I played all kinds of sports, certainly growing up, but basketball was the one that never got old. It was the one that I always loved. It was when I come home from volleyball or softball practice, get the homework done and then go out and shoot. It's always been a passion, and I don't know exactly where it came from. It's just been something that's been a part of my life and been a special part of my life for so long. And just like anything else, though, it's when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work a day in your life.
Of course. How was it from from a recruiting standpoint? I know you ended up being a great basketball player, and there were steps to get to that point. From junior high to high school. Obviously a phenomenal high school career, but when it was time for you to get recruited, how did that go? Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, it was, I can't imagine being recruited now. You know how it was back in the old days, Los. You had a landline, no cell phones.
Yeah.
The rules were they could only call once a week. You could get letters in the mail. So it wasn't nearly, didn't inundate and really take over your whole life at that time.
Sure.
AAU was not the same as it is now. No. We played in local tournaments, and in order to get to a national tournament, you had to win a state tournament. It wasn't like you just got to go be exposed to everybody. Back in those days, it was through camps and going on campus, and it was through word of mouth and things like that. And so while it was strenuous for me at the time because there was a lot, it was nothing compared to what these athletes go through today.
Of course.
And certainly pre cell phone and pre social media, there wasn't as much access. So I had boundaries around, like I wasn't talking after 9 o'clock at night. I was only talking on certain nights of the week. And so I was able to really live life and be a kid and, enjoy my family and enjoy, my friends and enjoy all those things without, being inundated all the time. And I'm thankful for that because it was hard enough as it was at that time. I visited Stanford, Vanderbilt, Purdue, Ohio State, and Penn State. Those ended up being my 5 schools. Okay. I wanted to study aviation. So Purdue was just down the road from me, certainly. So there was a home draw, but also because I originally majored in aviation. And at the end of the day, at that time, there was no WNBA, right? There was no professional women's basketball league in the United States. And so for me, it was an educational decision as much as an opportunity to win a national championship. I mean, those were my 2 priorities. And I could go somewhere else and try to get to flying on the side, which we know that you don't have any free time when you're a college athlete. Or I could go to Purdue and major in aviation and do the 2 things that I love to do. And so that's ultimately how I ended up, where I was. Now I changed majors after 2 years because flying became just a hobby. But at the same time, it was how I landed at Purdue.
For sure. I heard you mention in the 7th grade you got your first letter.
Yeah.
Who was that letter from?
It was ironically from Louisiana Tech and an assistant coach at the time named Nell Fortner, who coached me for a year at Purdue and then coached me for a little while in the WNBA. So I got a letter from Nell in the 7th grade, and then in the 8th grade from Sealberry at the University of Colorado. Those were my first 2 letters.
Wow, that is a beautiful story. In the recruiting process, it's funny that I talk to a lot of my guests about, that period of time. And I just want to ask you, if you had some advice to give to kids today getting recruited, what are the major things that you should look for when it comes to making that decision?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to keep the main thing. Yeah. Nowadays. You've got so many people in your ear. You've got so many influences. One of the things that my parents did, and it was not an easy process for us, with myself, with my parents. One of the things that they did for me before I even started talking to schools was they had me write down the 5 most important things to me? What are the 5 most important things? Because, recruiters are persuasive, right? Your perspective, your values, the things that are important change with every conversation. And so when I was going through the process, and at the end of the process, or when I was getting ready to make a decision, they were like, write down your 5 most important things now. And if they were different, right, then I understood that I was being influenced. And so I had to go back to, okay, yes, they are different, or they're in a different order. So the reality is, what is the priority now? And so I was thankful for that. I mean, I still do that now. It's like, you have your pros and cons, certainly, but like, what are your goals? What are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? What are your non-negotiables? And then I think the second thing is you got to put boundaries around it. Like there's no privacy, right? You're constantly inundated with cell phones and social media, and then I would say boundaries around who has access to you, and that includes people close to you, because everybody wants to be a part of the process, and everybody wants their opinion heard, and everybody wants it's not coming from ill intent. It's just the nature of where we are, and now in particular with NIL, it gets even more muddled.
Of course.
When you're talking about money and opportunity to make money, and, opportunity to make money versus opportunity to develop. Are you going to be a pro? Could you be a pro? Are you not? Where do you go? Does that program, those coaches, do they develop you into what your ultimate goal is? Or is it a short-term bridge, for something else?
Sure.
And I think it gets really convoluted. And so I think making sure that you have, before you even start, your priority, and obviously with maturation, priorities are going to change, and goals are going to change, and things are going to, are going to adjust. But at the core of what you want out of your experience, and at the core of what you want for your short and long-term goals, those really usually stay the same.
Yes.
And so if you understand what that is to start, as you navigate the process, you go back to that and you look at that, and you have those conversations, those hard conversations. Then I think it'll help you not get so muddled down in a lot of the gray and a lot of the everybody else's ideals of what might be good for you.
Of course, and it's so. I mean, it's just so important for us to speak to the youth, to speak to the people that are getting recruited these days, and try to implement some sort of structure when it comes to it. Because obviously we know how it is now, and it's it's wild. It's wild. But
it's the Wild West right now.
It's the wild, wild West. I remember Doug Bruno getting up saying that at one of our Final Four meetings, he got up in front of the podium before this all jumped off, and he said, you know what? You are about to create the Wild Wild West. And I think you might have been there. You might have been at the Yeah, but I remember that, and now, it couldn't be more true. It couldn't be. But it's good to, like I said, have people that are able to communicate on this level and kind of, keep the main thing in conversation, in hopes that one day it'll come back and it'll be, kind of a little more organized. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, Steph, now tell me, so going from the recruiting stage, now it's time to enter college. All right. This is one of the things that you've been waiting for. You've been wanting to do. You select your college, Purdue. All right. Walk us through that. What did that feel like, and what were some of those experiences?
Yeah. I mean, it was a tough process for me. I grew up a Purdue fan. I grew up being a little, towel kid, ball kid for the Purdue volleyball team. A lot of my family either went to Purdue or University of Illinois. So it was, I was caught halfway in between there. But it was a little stressful because of all of the expectations, I think, because, we had the number one recruiting class coming in. I was the number one player in the country coming in.
Yes, ma'am.
I was at home. So, the heaviness or the quote unquote pressure of being able to do everything that I did in high school at the college level. I don't think I quite understood that at the time, what it was. And then, getting there, and Purdue had come off of a Final Four, the year before, and you know, it was like we were continuing to build into, you know, potentially a national power, and so it was tough. We were coming into a veteran heavy team. I think we had 5 or 6 seniors at the time. I say we. I always Yukari and I are kind of 2 and 1. Like I always, we're a we with everything that we went through at Purdue together. You know, we underachieved that first year. You know, Lynn Dunn was our coach, and she wasn't retained after that year. We had a mass exodus, you know, and nothing really was as I had intended or envisioned it was going to be. And, you know, it was a great, I think, lesson for me in terms of what it means to view something in one way, like it's going to be this. Like I always dreamed of going to college and we're going to play for a national championship, and you know it's going to be a linear process and everything's going to be perfect. And and then it was a harsh reality right away that this is not the same as high school. The game wasn't the same. You know, the teams weren't the same. The experience wasn't the same. And then the reality of, you know, now you're going through a hardship, you're going through a setback, you're going through something that are you going to change your mind and go somewhere else, or you have an opportunity to sort of recalibrate and re-envision what this experience is going to be like. And so I think it taught me some flexibility, it taught me some resilience, it taught me at the time that tough decisions had to be made, and then opening, you know, myself up, because I'm a pretty type A rigid person at the time, especially opened myself up to new experiences. And I think it was a really good lesson for me.
That's beautiful. Yes. And I mean, just to hear it, because obviously I met you, you know, once you got into the pros, but just seeing some of the things that it took for you to get to that level. I've heard so many different things about you when you were coming up, #1 player, this and that. But it's just good to let the world know what it took for you to really overcome that, because there's so many people that are experiencing that same type of situation in college adjustment areas, you know. So once you got there, who was your teammates? Like, who did you play with? Any notable names?
As a former athlete and coach, I understand how important it is to take care of your body. Training to compete at a high level can often deplete your body of the minerals it needs to rebuild muscle, tendons, and ligaments. But don't worry, because I have the cheat code for recovery. H3 Energetic Sea Moss. My wife and I both take it every day, and it gives us a boost of energy while also helping with those unexpected aches and pains. Look, don't get struck. Go to h3energetics.com today and grab your container of sea moss. Use the discount code ASTARSTRUCK and get one of my favorite flavors, the Mixed Berry Blast, for 10% of the regular price.
Well, I mean, at that time, my freshman year, Janon Rowland, whose children are really good ball players, you know, now, the Lamplies.
Yes.
Played with Stacy Lovelace.
Okay.
I played with Yukari Figs, my teammate, who went on to Yukari, one of the few people who won a high school championship, a national championship in college, and a WNBA championship with the LA Sparks. Katie Douglas, eventually, not that freshman year, but eventually as well. Kelly Camara, who's an assistant coach at Purdue now. You know, and Yukari and I, we really are like a duo, because we went through a lot of experiences together there. We played for 3 coaches in 4 years at Purdue. We went from a national championship front runner as freshmen to picked last in the Big Ten as sophomores. You know, we ended up winning a share of the title that year to 2 years after that, you know, winning a national championship. And I think for both of us, you know, that experience in understanding, you know, how we as players have ownership in shaping culture.
Of course.
How we as players have ownership in the direction of our program. And how we as players have a voice in the direction of our program. And so I think, you know, for us, it was not just an experience in terms of the basketball portion of it, but I think it really helped us in terms of leadership. And again, what we were going to allow to be created, or what we wanted to be created, and then the boundaries of which we were going to put around our ownership of how we got there and the culture that we were going to create at Purdue, because we really had an opportunity that second year to start from ground zero. I mean, we only returned 3 players from the
Right.
team the year before.
Exactly.
You know, we had a couple of incoming freshmen, and then everybody else, you know, bolted and went a different way.
Of course.
And so I think it gave us an opportunity to start from ground zero and really take ownership of it. And I think oftentimes players give away the ownership. You know, they want to be told what to do, or they want it to be, you know, somebody else's, you know, a problem, or they want to defer to other people, as opposed to like awareness, number one, and number two, like ownership. We now have ownership of the direction of this program,
Of course.
and we were not going to let what happened happen again.
Of course.
And I think that taught us really good life lessons.
Yes, perfect. I agree. And again, to be in a position to recognize that is very, very important. You know, it's so many different people, like I said, going, you know, through their college careers and need that type of information and understanding of what's going on, you know? So
Yeah, for sure. And I think, Lois, the other thing too is, you know, as adults, can't be afraid to have the hard conversations. And as kids, and now me as a parent, like helping my children understand, like, we're not cleaning up messes for you, right? Like you've got to fail. You've got to learn how to fail. You've got to learn how to bounce back. You've got to learn to navigate the hard things. You've got to learn to have tough conversations. Like, look, we'll be here as a safety net, and we'll be here to help you navigate. But even arguments with each other, don't come telling me.
Right.
Like, you guys need to figure that thing out on your own, right? And I do think that oftentimes, and I find this, you know, a lot at being a parent, is we want everybody wants their kids' lives to be better than yours was, right? Nobody wants your kids to have to go through hard things, but that's not the reality of life.
not the reality.
Like, it's just not, right? So I think the earlier we can help them understand that you're going to fail, right? You're going to get knocked down. You're going to go through hard things. How do you respond to those? How do you navigate those? How do you lean on people? How do you lead from different points in different directions? And, you know, I think those are lessons sometimes that we shield our kids from having. And you probably see this as a college coach. You know, I see this coaching at all different levels. I see it, you know, in community. I see it in youth sports. I see it all over the place. You know, I think we have a responsibility to help them, you know, navigate and help prepare them in a way that we might have been prepared and might not. You know, I you know, to each his own, right? But having the experiences I had helped me shape the viewpoint of how I wanted to be as a parent.
It's so difficult to reenact our lives.
It is.
Or recreate our lives for our children, but you hit it on the head. It's like you want them to experience something tough enough to create that tough skin, that, you know, that adversity built individual. But I mean, we work all our lives, like you said, we work all our lives to try to be the best we can be, to put them in the best position. And then, you know, the situations that come up, just hopefully that they are experienced in some areas that may carry over to the next area and, you know, help them through it. So that's a great point.
Right.
A great point. Now it's time for you to leave college. And obviously, again, you had a great career in college. It's time to move to the pros. Tell me about that draft night, that draft situation. How did it go for you?
Well, it wasn't like it is now.
Right.
I can tell you that. You know, I hurt my ankle in the national championship game. That's an ankle I've since had 3 surgeries on. But I was not able to participate because it was only a couple of weeks later that the draft happened. And so I was not able to participate in pre-draft camp. The draft at the time was online, and the online was dial-up, right? You know, we had just gotten the internet, right? It was the dial-up online. And I was taken as like the third college player in the second round. I don't know if for those that don't remember, the ABL, which was the league before the WNBA, had folded that year. And all of those people were in our draft. And so as I was listening to the draft, I heard I think Shamika Holdsclaw goes to Washington, and I eventually heard Dawn Staley goes to Charlotte. And then eventually I hear my name to Charlotte. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to play with Dawn Staley, who I just watched play in the Olympics. It's going to be incredible. And so, yeah, I played my rookie year in Charlotte. And you go down there and just like everything else, it's a huge adjustment. This is not college anymore.
Of course.
And, what you did in college is not enough in the WNBA. How you worked, how you prepared, what you did. Your stats, your nothing. You're talking about playing against grown women who have been playing professionally for a long time. And so, yeah, again, it was an adjustment. I was away from home really for the first time, living in Charlotte, playing that rookie year. It wasn't the same. I wasn't the same player in the pros that I was in college or in high school. And, learning how to go from being a quote unquote star, starter, leading scorer, All-American, whatever, to being a role player was, again, another adjustment. I think it's something that's certainly helped me in my coaching career, that I played so many different roles. Right. I've been the one who didn't come off the floor. I've been the one who didn't get on the floor. I've been the one who may not have made a team. Been the one who's gone through injuries. I've been the one who's, so all of these different things that I experienced as a player, it's number one, it's humbling. But number two, again, life lessons. I didn't plan on having a long playing career, and I ended up having 6 surgeries in 3 years, which kind of, threw me into the coaching realm a little bit early.
Of course. Gotcha.
But at the same time, I think that every experience that I had positioned me to be a leader of women and positioned me to be a coach. And I think the way I played the game, I think the way I studied the game, I think my strengths as a player, because none of them were athletic, I think my strengths as a player, were about positioning me to ultimately do what I do now. And so I'm thankful for it.
Of course. Yes. And I can see where you're coming from with that. I remember you talk about Charlotte. But obviously we met when you got to the Indiana Fever. I want you to talk about that a little bit. But one thing I want to make note of, when you talk about coming out of school and being a, quote unquote star and your role changes, I think that's one of the most critical pieces of information that the youth can get today, because of the landscape of college basketball. Now you have the NIL. Now you have different ways of being recruited. When you step into a college atmosphere, you have to be willing to and ready to adjust to either playing a role, and your role may be a starter to score, block, or rebound or whatever, but it could also be just stepping in and playing a solid backup role that allows our team to have success. So I appreciate you speaking on that. Kind of talk about when it was time for you to transition from Charlotte to Indiana.
Yes, so played my rookie year in Charlotte. Indiana and Miami were going to be expansion teams the next year. I was actually taken in the expansion draft by Miami, and Sandy Brondello was taken in the expansion draft by Indiana, and then we were traded for one another. So yeah, I was able to get back to Indiana. It's funny because when Sandy and I are coaching against each other, that's often brought up by some of the broadcasters. But it was great to be back home. Look, not many people get the opportunity to play every level of sport in your home state.
Absolutely.
Sure. I thought at the time when I was drafted to Charlotte, it's a no-brainer that Indiana at some point gets a team. It's, we're the basketball state, for goodness sakes.
Of course.
And for me to be able to play at all 3 levels, high school, college, and the pros in Indiana, it just was a dream come true.
Absolutely.
I went into college thinking that I was done after college. And then I had an opportunity to play, for 4 years in an Indiana Fever jersey. It was a dream come true. And look, we were starting a franchise, and when you're an expansion team, it's usually pretty tough for a while.
Of course.
And it was, but to see, where we started, and to see where the franchise has come, I mean, it's really incredible, and I'm just so thankful for all of the experiences that I've had with the franchise, and that I'm still able to be a part of it.
Of course. Any notable players for the Indiana Fever that you played with, admire, feel good about speaking
in
about?
Those early years?
Yes.
Shoot, yeah. I mean, look, we were all just scrapping and clawing at that time.
Of course.
Rita Williams was on that team. Alicia Thompson was on that team. Olympia Scott was on that team. And then we certainly had an opportunity to change the trajectory of our franchise with the addition of Tamika Catchings. I remember when Catch came as a rookie. She didn't get to play that year because she was coming off of an injury, but how valuable she was in our locker room, showing us how she worked coming back from injury. Natalie Williams came in a trade when Utah then got moved to San Antonio. We traded for Natalie Williams during that time frame as well. And that was one of my roommates on the road. And then eventually Niele coming down and playing with us and being drafted and helping us get to another level. It's the process of going from infancy to relevance. And that was the reality of what a expansion team was. You got to go through the bumps. Same with the league, right? You got to go through the bumps. You got to go through the hard times. You got to go through the growth process, to get to where you want to go. And then, for me to be able to come back and be an assistant coach on a team that won a championship.
Yes.
I always say that it's really cool. Like, not only did I play my whole career in the state of Indiana, but I was a part of the first Indiana Fever team. I was a part of the first Indiana Fever championship.
Yes, 2012.
And then to be able to coach the Indiana Fever. I mean, it's just, I don't think that I could have written a better script.
Absolutely. That's 100% correct. And I had the pleasure of just being around you guys at the start, and obviously joining you guys on staff. And, the championship was crazy, 2012. I mean, we just have so many fond memories, and that's one of the reasons why I enjoy being around you and talking to you so much, because we've really been in the foxhole together.
We have, and in a lot, in so many ways. I mean, everybody sees the championships or the wins or the, whatever, like the trophies, like everybody sees that stuff, but they don't see the daily grind, right? Like, they don't see the ups and downs. They don't see the tough conversations, the tears, all the things. And I think oftentimes for young people, it looks like you just dropped yourself off on top of the mountain, right? And it's not like that. And nothing is linear. It's a whole lot of mess that gets you there.
Yes.
And it's how you handle that mess. It's how you work through that mess. It's the late hours in the gym and the early mornings in the gym and the days where your shot's off and you're shooting after a game. And, it's not, okay, well, I'm struggling, so I'm just going to, I'm just going to mentally take a break.
Exactly.
No, it's I'm struggling. I got to get in the gym and I got to figure it out, because if I don't have a job.
Exactly.
Right. It was for me in high school. It was at 5:30 in the morning every day. My grandpa picked me up and took me out to the school so that I could be running on the track and lifting weights.
Of course.
Because I knew that was the only way for me to go to college, was to get a college scholarship.
That is so
My
good.
parents were barely 18 when I was born. They didn't have anything. I grew up in the middle of a cornfield. Like, I wasn't going to just get noticed.
Of course.
Like, I had to put in the work. And and it doesn't change anything that you want to accomplish, sport or otherwise. It takes the work, and it takes the grind, and it takes all the hours that nobody sees.
Of course. And that's why I just note the fact that, I was with you, and we were with each other, and as a staff, we were able to see those moments and those times. Talk about our relationship a little bit. Every time I see you, I brag on you. I talk about you. I talk to people about you. But just how we met and how it organically happened for us, because you was a hooper. Let's not forget
Shoot,
that.
you were a hooper. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I mean, just first of all, as a player, and knowing your name, and having you around the building, and being able to play some pickup, and
Yeah.
be in practices, and all of that, and then for me, I went away and was coaching in college for a little while, and came back. When you were working with Catch, working with Catch, and just being around you every day, and just seeing, the way that you went about, like, you could tell how you prepared as a player by how you help players prepare.
Absolutely.
No, just being able to see beyond the obvious, being able to see the way the game was changing, being able to see players' games changing. And, oftentimes, coaches, they work with players, but they work with players on what they want them to be in that system, not where they can grow them to. And I think that that's one of the things that I always love so much about you. It's like, hey, like, yeah, we can sit here and we can do all these things that you're already really good at, or we can find what that next level is for you.
For sure.
And you'll be in the gym before practice with all those players. You'd be in the gym after practice with all those players.
Yes,
And the other thing that I appreciate so much about you is that, you're always just like this. And we're like, I'm pretty emotional, like I'm pretty crazy at times, and, up and down, and that the competitiveness manifests itself in different ways with lots of different people.
Yes.
And for you, you were always just right here for us. That was one of the things that I appreciated so much. Never too high, never too low.
For sure.
Yep. Let's just get in and get the work done. Right.
certain.
I love that.
Absolutely. And you know what? I really appreciate you saying that, and I also appreciated that from you guys, just accepting me in on the women's side of basketball, because I hadn't really been in that space, and just learning and understanding who you guys were. That really helped me out in my career. Playing as well as coaching. Obviously, going to moving from the professional side of it and really focusing on coaching basketball. When you first got to the pros, I know you coached in college for a minute, but when you first got to the pros, what was that experience like as far as you being the head coach of a franchise? Well, first, obviously, let me say this. I remember this, and I have the picture of us when we won the Eastern Conference Finals. That was beautiful.
That's right.
You were assistant. I was assistant. That was beautiful. So let's start there as far as, your assistant coaching in the W.
You have never heard anyone come in and actually guarantee a bucket off the bounce from half court. H3 energetic CMOS. That's what does it, dog. All right, don't try this at home, and don't say I didn't tell you. Y'all know me. Off the bounce! Oh!
Just speaking about, our journey as far as you being the assistant coach on the Fever, us going to the Eastern Conference Finals. I was just so happy to be in that foxhole with you, and I learned so much from you. How was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, that was it was great. I think the thing about coaching, just like playing, is that you got to be a sponge, right?
Yeah.
Like you're always growing, you're always learning, and learning from those that we're working with. Learning from Lynn, who was the head coach, and for me now, I'm coaching players who I played with, and so learning how to communicate in a different way, and how you navigate helping players see coaches' perspective and helping coach see players' perspective, right? And that sometimes can be challenging. And I talk to our assistant coaches a lot about that, because I'm much further removed than they are from their playing days. But hey, listen, I need you to come to me to help me understand like where they're coming from.
Of course.
Right. And I need you to go to them and help them understand like where we're coming from, because, it's as a player, you see it at like 10,000 feet. Right. And as an assistant coach, you see it at like, 30,000 feet. And as a head coach, you got to see it at like 75,000 feet. Right. Like there's so many other things that are involved. And so I think making sure that the communication was there, making sure that we always have this growth mindset, this growth mentality of how are we going to get better? I got better watching, you do workouts with people. I got better, having basketball conversation with people. I got better the day that you brought in George Hill and Paul George trying to talk to us about navigating ball screen defense, right? Like all of those things, the day we stop growing and the day we stop learning is the day it's time for us to hang it up. And, it's as players, we oftentimes think we know it all. And I think that, for us as coaches, when we're seeing it from a different perspective, we're like, hell, we didn't know anything as a player, right?
Of course. That's exactly
like we didn't know anything as a player. And then we challenge ourselves to keep growing and stretching, and our staff then, you and Klopp and DeMoss and Dunn and, and then Gail a year later, our staff helped one another stretch and helped one another grow. And I'm always thankful for that.
I am extremely thankful for that. We talk about it a lot. So now, obviously, the head coach of the Indiana Fever. Again, a dream come true. I smile every time I look at you on that sideline because it's a beautiful thing. You remember what I done there as far as assistant, interim head coach, and it's like everyone is family there. Everyone knows exactly who you are. Everyone sticks together. So I'm forever thankful and grateful for my opportunity there, because it was much more than that moment. It was just the history of everything that I've done up until that point, and to be standing on the sideline as the head coach there, I mean, it just really meant something. And now I look at you, and again, we're in the foxhole together every day, so I'm extremely proud to say that, Steph is doing her thing as the Indiana Fever head coach. How do you go about your day with that, and how do you feel in that space?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's I know it sounds cliche when I say this, but it's like it's home, and this franchise is I feel like it's a part of my DNA. I really do. I love the franchise. I take a lot of pride in being able to wear the shirts, and I don't wear the jersey anymore, but I wear the shirts and to represent the Simon family and to represent the Indiana Fever, and to do it with people that have been there from the beginning. It is a family, and it continues to be a family. And it's Lynn Dunn preparing me for the opportunity and still being my mentor and being a part of this journey. It's Kelly Krauskopf, who brought me back to Indiana as a player, who gave me the opportunity as a head coach, who brought me back now, as a head coach again. It's Bree and Rima, who are on our championship team, who played for me, who now work with me, and who are going to go on and be head coaches. It's Austin, who was one of those practice guys that prepared us every day, who's an assistant coach as well. Todd, who was our trainer at the time, and who came back. It's always and to all the people in the stands and on the sidelines and the ushers and in the business office and everywhere. I mean, it means something when you have so many people who just love going to work every day.
Of course.
It means something when you and we talk about this in coaching all the time, like when you're playing for the name on the front of the jersey and not the back of the jersey. But as a franchise, it means something to know, these people stay here because you love it, number one, and because you're cared for, number two, because we care about people. And we put people first. And I know ultimately it's about wins and losses. I know that. But that's not how we approach every day at the office. And I think because of that, we've been a franchise that has been able to overachieve. I think because of that, we've been a franchise that people want to continue to come back to. And while it's a franchise that's taken its lumps at times, because sport is cyclical, Like it is. It just is. But to be able to be back in this moment with people that you continue to be in the foxhole with people that you care about, on a personal level, I think our players see that. I think our players embrace that. And we had a group in that locker room this year that owned that. They cared about one another. They care about the culture that we have and continue to have. And I say this all the time, like connected teams are winning teams. And being connected is good for 12 to 15 points a ball game.
For sure.
And I think that you saw an example of that this year with our group.
For sure. For certain. I like I said, watching it from afar, it's just a pleasure to see the franchise and where it is now. From day one to see a packed arena. I mean, this is something that was so, I don't know, difficult to see in the future. But, now we're looking at it. Now we're looking at one of the hottest franchises coming up this year. Obviously, the last few years have been pandemonium. But that brings me to my next question. Obviously, Caitlin Clark. She's been a big part of women's basketball movement, period. But for her to be in that Indiana Fever uniform, for her to embrace and embody the feel of a franchise player, because I've been around Indiana's franchise player her entire career, 16, 17 years in Tamika Catchings, and still remains a great friend of mine now, like my family. But just listening to the talk about Caitlin Clark's impact, now we have it from the horse's mouth when it comes to, Coach Stephanie White. And I just want to hear your take on her, her ability to be implemented in that role.
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, she's like, and I've said this before, she's like Taylor Swift 2.0. I mean, the fandom that follows her. I think for her, the way that she handles it is just incredible. I mean, Lois, let's think about when we were 21, 22, 23 years old, to navigate the level of things that she has to navigate. We were able to make mistakes and get away with it because nobody saw it, right? Like everything is out there now. And I just think that first and foremost, she handles herself in such a great way. She's a pro when it comes to it. And she's just done a great job of navigating some really incredible circumstances, and that's just as a human being. Right. And then you think about the way that she has elevated basketball. She's a generational talent. And the way that she has elevated the game, the game and where it is now is what we always dreamed of.
Of course.
Right. It's what we always envisioned. And again, you have to go through things. And I think as a league, we've gone through growing pains. I think as just like you do as players, just like we do as coaches, gone through some growing pains, but ultimately we're where we've always thought we should be. And Caitlin is part of that, part of what got us here. And she'll be part of what continues to move the needle for us for the next generation. And one of the things that I love about her is that she is so open and honest about when she met Maya Moore and about watching Minnesota play when she was a kid and dreaming about that. And now these young girls and boys are watching her and dreaming about playing professional sports or being elite at what they do. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world 2 years ago, or I think it was 2 years ago, when I was calling her the NCAA tournament her senior year at Iowa. And I'm on the sideline calling the games, and my kid, my oldest, is texting me because all of his buddies are on a group chat watching the game.
Yes.
Like, I have boys, and the fact that boys are so invested that they wear their CC stuff, they wear their Kelsey Mitchell jerseys, they wear their Aaliyah Boston jerseys, their Lexi Hall jerseys, that they just embrace sport as sport. Because when I was growing up, it wasn't like that. Right? It wasn't like that. It was like women's sports were second-class citizens, right? And so to now see how they elevate and how they embrace and how they celebrate women in general, but women's sports, I just like, this is mainstream, right? Like, this is how it was always supposed to be. And so for me, obviously, to be able to work with Caitlin every day, great players challenge you as coaches.
Of course.
Great players are your hardest workers. And, we've been really fortunate to be around one of the hardest workers we've ever seen in Tamika Catchings.
Yes.
Hardest purposeful workers. And Caitlin's not any different. She's the same. You go in the gym and you're getting work done. You're not in the gym for 2 hours just shooting half speed and going through the motions. Like, no, you're in the gym getting stuff done.
Of course.
You're in the gym being purposeful. Like, you're not going to get outworked. And all of us who crave putting ourselves in position to win and for success are a little bit crazy.
Of course.
Right? Like, we're a little bit nuts in how we compete. And I love the competitive fire that she has. It was like Catch. And I always told this story about Catch. The first time I crossed paths with Tamika, she was an 8th grader or 7th grader. We were playing an AAU tournament in Chicago. And she was a little hot-headed, right? Like, she got called for a foul or something and threw the ball up against the bleachers. But that's like that fiery competitive that we saw throughout the course of her career.
Of course.
And as you age, you learn to navigate it and channel it in different productive ways.
Of course.
Right. And I love Caitlin Clark's competitive fire. And I tell her all the time, like, look, I'm the same kind of crazy as you are, but I've got 25 years on you. Right. So, like, now I can hopefully help, navigate some of that. And she's great at giving us feedback on the floor, things that she sees, what she likes, what she doesn't, and challenging us as coaches to be better.
Of course. And I can understand that. I see it in her. And that's why I spoke on it, because she is definitely one of those pioneers, one of those people that will be looked at as transforming the game, one of them. And, to hear her work ethic, again, Steph, the reason why I have this platform is for younger kids to come and watch and listen to knowledge that allows them to be better. And most people, I've had, NBA guys on here, I've had Olympians, WNBA champions, and most of them talk about the regiment, the work ethic, and the daily routine that you need to make sure that you become the player that you need to be. And that's why I wanted to speak specifically on Caitlin, because you can tell that she has that type of regiment and routine.
Yeah, no doubt. And then as you get older and more experienced in your career, you understand the value of not just the regimen on the floor, but the prehab and the rehab and the recovery and the sleep and the nutrition, and all of those things that as young people you might be able to get away with not knowing or not fine tuning. But to have the decade pluses long careers, as we've seen, the greatest of the great do, all of that stuff has to be just as heightened. And you have to be just as disciplined, and you have to be just as committed. And so when it used to be, 3 hours or 4 hours a day of, getting up and getting in the gym and then it becomes, 6 to 8 hours, right?
Of course, yes.
Now it's the warm up and the prehab, and now it's the corrective exercises, and now it's the warm up to the warm up, right? And then on the floor, and then the cool down, and then the stretching, and then the sleep, all of those things. And just like everything else, when we know better, we do better. And the more information that we have and the more that we can give, and then how it's implemented will solely dictate the length of your career.
That is so true. That's so true. Understanding the recovery, understanding what you need to do to maintain. I love that in our college players, just teaching them and, them actually getting it and understanding the hot tub and the cold tub. It really works. Oh, my God.
It really works.
You know what I mean? That's one of the greatest feelings to see. If I shoot Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, guess what? My jump shot is better Friday.
That's right.
I mean, the law of average. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's it's good to share those type of jewels. Any Caitlin Clark stories that stand out? I mean, just in the heat of the moment. Any combative, she hit the three at the end of the game, or you know what I mean? Any of that?
No, I remember, two things. One, when I was calling a game, I was calling Iowa at Maryland. It was her senior year again. And I was staying at the hotel just across from campus at Maryland. And I remember I was coming down like 2 to 3 hours before the game to go get the car to drive over to the stadium. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know it at the time, but Iowa must have been staying in the hotel because I'm coming down the escalator and the lobby is packed, like packed. And I'm like, what the heck? Right. Like, and of course, then you see all the Caitlin Clark jerseys and all these things. And I'm like, this is on the road.
Yeah.
In DC, right? Like College Park, right? In Maryland.
Yeah.
This is on the road. And then, no lie, to go a half a mile, it took me 45 minutes because they sold out Maryland's arena for an away game. And it was packed in the, and I remember talking to some people at Indiana at the time, and I was like, get ready, man, because this is going to be a wild ride. That was the first thing, and it was just like, I expected to see that in Iowa.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
But at Maryland, I mean, it was incredible. I was like, man, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And the second thing on the floor this year, I think it might have been her first game back early when she was out early with an injury, but we were playing New York, and I don't know, she was hot. And she had just hit a shot, and I think I turned around to say something to one of our assistant coaches, and then all of a sudden I hear the crowd erupt. And it's like, what happened? She had gotten the ball back and shot like a, 32-footer, and it goes in. And I mean, it just happened so fast. It's like, holy cow, like, while this kid is out here, you can't even turn your back because something spectacular is going to happen. It's just, she makes such extraordinary plays and extraordinary shots, and they seem so ordinary to her.
Yes.
It's just, you can't, and we said this a lot about Catch too, but it's like, you can't take for granted how hard the stuff that she makes look really easy
Absolutely.
Is.
Yes.
And you can't take for granted all of the things that she can do on the floor because, that's just Caitlin being Caitlin.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
Of course.
And I think sometimes as we've been around for a long time, so we can see that and appreciate that for what it is. But I think sometimes, you get the casual fans that are like, oh, well, this is just anybody can do this, right?
Of course.
No, they can't.
No.
And it's really special.
It's really
special.
You know what's funny is we have a kid the same identical way. Nielle, she will turn and look at me after Hannah Hidalgo does something, and she'll be talking to me, and I'll say, "Watch, hey, something else has happened, right?" She get another steal for a 3, another steal for a layup. I mean, it's just incredible. Like you said, it just reminded me of that when you said that.
Yeah,
like you cannot talk. You look up and it's over. She's done something else. It's wild.
Yep, you can't blink.
Yeah. So Steph, I really appreciate those stories. The title of our podcast is A Star Struck. Okay, and there's a reason why. Okay, a star being struck by adversity, where it then takes resilience or some type of just some passion to get over it. You and I can both talk about this from a personal standpoint as well as a on the floor standpoint. Coaching, I mean, it goes with so many different directions. But I like to get people like yourself on here just to talk about kind of their star-struck moment. And not only that, what did they do to really overcome it, and how are they coping or dealing with it today? What was your star-struck moment?
I think too, for me, in that sense, one, just going through the injuries, as a pro, and understanding. I think I was, even though you never like not playing as a player because you're super competitive. I think I was able to wrap my mind around, the various roles that I was going to play at the pro level, but then having to try to overcome, injury after injury, was challenging. And then when it's time to hang up the sneakers for the last time, that's a hard transition. Mm-hmm. It was a hard transition for me, just being able to say, okay, well, number one, I'm not as good as I used to be. And number two, now I'm not going to be playing anymore. What am I transitioning to? Which is why coaching and even broadcasting for that matter, I didn't envision myself coaching. I didn't envision myself working in television. but it ended up being the most seamless way to still have my competitiveness, and the thing that I love the most in this in the game, still be able to shine through, for lack of a better term, to still be able to apply it. The second thing was getting fired. I mean, it's like you've found ways to be successful.
Yes.
as we, as in the I talk to my kids all the time about, like, just because you win a trophy doesn't mean you're successful. Like, what is success really? And all of these humbling experiences that we have teach us, like, success is not the trophies. Success is not the championships. While that's ultimately our goal, what we want, but success is having healthy children. Success is being able to pour into young people. Success is watching other people succeed, right? Like, all of these different things, that it becomes much less selfless the older that you get and the more experience that you have. But getting fired, definitely. I mean, it was, it's hard because you've been able to position yourself for success. You've been able to put other people in positions for success. And then when you weren't able to get it done, and you lose your job, like, it was hard. Like, I remember, I got a couple of phone calls from people who have been in that position before. And it was just, just reassuring, number one, that, for me, it was like, thank you for calling, because I just wanted to crawl in a hole. But I'll never forget, I was supposed to do a virtual speaking engagement the next day. And I think it was a Northwest Indiana, women's event. And I got a text message from the woman who was running it at the time. And she's like, hey, like, I just saw the news. I'll understand if you don't want to do this. And I had to make a decision in that moment, because everything in me wanted to not do that. Right. Like, I was just like, I just want to just waller around for a while. And then I was like, no, like, what kind of lesson, number one, am I teaching my kids? And what is that saying about who I am as a person if I'm just going to bail because, something happened to me that I didn't like.
Of course.
And so I just decided at that moment that I have to lean into this. I have to lean into this, and I've got to work through it. Just like any other failure, right? You got to work through it. And some failures are private, some are public. And how you handle it and how you navigate it is important. And I feel like I grew in that moment. I didn't know whether I was going to coach again or not. Fortunately, I've had the opportunity to continue to do so. Oftentimes, for some coaches, you don't get the opportunity again. Certainly, as a head coach,
of course.
And so I'm thankful that I was able to work through it. And look, it takes a lot. Even this year was very difficult.
Of course,
it was challenging early in the year. But the people who you've been around and the people who've supported you and text messages and phone calls and hugs and just checking in, even if we don't respond, right? You know how it is. Like, even if you don't respond, it's like you feel that support system around you, family. And so each time you go through a different kind of hardship, you're a little stronger, right? And you're a little wiser and you're a little better and you know how to navigate it a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. So you really took a lot of time to yourself and tried to just overcome the adversity with trying to strengthening your spiritual side, your passion,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And relationships, and taking time to kind of just breathe. I feel like everything that we do, we're always climbing, right? It's always a rat race. We're always trying to get better, and we're always working, and we're always prepping, and we're always trying to get that next thing. That sometimes, like, something as simple as I went on vacation for the first time in a long time right after that happened, and it was like, oh, like, this is so nice, just peace and
relaxing,
reacquainting myself with myself and reacquainting myself with perspective. Now, we had also just come through the pandemic, so I had a lot of humbling experiences through that time.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
the pandemic. George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. I mean, all of the things, like, where are we going to stand on the right side of all of these things, on the right side of history, on the right side of humanity, on the right side of now embracing failure again, like, all of these different things for me, working through that, I think gave me a new perspective. Like, look, I've had, and continue to have such a great run. And I think now, because of that, I don't take it for granted. I don't take every opportunity that I have to step into the gym with these women, with the Indiana Fever. I don't take any of it for granted.
Lightly,
And
yes.
prior to that, maybe I did.
For sure. I can appreciate you saying that. Obviously, when you talk about being in the coaching realms, hiring and firing is part of the game. It is. And you don't really understand it until it really happens to you. But obviously we can talk about the adversity that comes along with it and just how you overcome it, because I've been in that position a few times. And it's good to hear from someone that's candid, that's, that really is transparent about what happened, because it's a part of the game, but also how you came out and how you overcome it. From a mental health standpoint, we always talk about that being such a big part of our athletes' lives, our coaches' lives, on and off the floor. From a mental health standpoint, like, what's your take on mental health these days?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a priority.
Yeah.
We grew up in a time where it was like, you don't show any emotion when you play, and you've got to shoulder the load of everything, right? Like you can't hurt, you can't cry, you can't this, you can't that. Every bit of that is weakness.
Yeah.
And it's again, we know better, so we got to do better,
Absolutely.
right? And I think for me, in particular, going through some of the different experiences I've gone through, not just as an athlete and coach, but as a human being, understanding the value of therapy, man, understanding the value of talking to a professional that can help you navigate. I had to lead into that again this year. And it's life-changing and it's game-changing because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do everything the right way. To live up to expectation, our own especially, right? And to be everything for everyone.
Yeah.
And we're human.
Yes.
And in order for us to be our best, we have to fill our cup too. And what does that look like? And for everybody, it's different. For me, when I'm dealing with things, to be able to talk to a therapist, to be able to spend time with my family, to be able to get a quick getaway, to shut down, from the digital world, and to make sure that I prioritize those things and put boundaries on it. Like I totally got off of social media because I knew that, I needed that for my mental health. And I did that when I was at Vanderbilt. I've done it intermittently, here and there. Whenever I feel like I just need to make sure that I'm solely focused on again, keeping the main thing. Like I got to be my best. I want to be my best for these women that I'm coaching, for my staff,
For sure.
for my family.
Yes.
And how can I best do that? And I think for us, it's figuring that out. And look, we're at an age where it's like, we don't need it. Number one,
Of course.
and I know that oftentimes young people think it's, their brand, and okay, I don't think that, but
Right.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
And even for my children, it's like, we're not doing that. Like that's not, we're not, I want you to be free thinking. I want you to be uninhibited by, opinion as much as we can, I want you to challenge, social norms, and they're going to read a lot of things, and some of it's going to be true, some of it's not going to be true. I want them to be able to filter through that on their own. And for me, though, that helping them understand how to protect their mental health and the boundaries that come along with that, as well as the resources, it's important. We talk openly about therapy in our house. We talk openly about different points of view in our house, and we talk openly about how much we love and care about each other, and leaning on one another, because nobody can do it on their own.
For sure.
And
For sure.
particularly now, I mean, with all of the vitriol on social media, I think athletes need to be able to lean into to their mental health and what's going to help them be the best that they can be.
That's so true. And I'm happy that you said that, because you and I have had some conversations over the years just where it's very necessary for you to be in tune and in touch with what's needed to move forward. from a mental health standpoint. So I agree with everything that you're saying, and it's just very important that you are on that page and trying to be the best you can be, but also seeking just the support and some of the things that's available for you to be, in a good space. So that's cool.
Right. And I think too, there's more availability of resources now than there ever was.
Absolutely.
And so, utilizing those resources and encouraging, athletes to utilize those resources is important.
For sure. Well, Steph, I really, really, truly appreciate you coming on. I do. I wanted you to leave the youth, the kids that's watching, the audience, obviously, with a message on what it takes to be resilient and also what it takes to make it, and that doesn't necessarily mean the WNBA, the NBA, just to be successful. And like you said, what is success? What does it really take for a young person that's coming up, young athlete, and the everyday student that's coming up in this society to be successful?
Well, number one, it's the work. You got to be willing to put in the work, and that's everything from studying for a test to get a better grade to
Yes.
Making sure that you're diligent with your homework, and to the sport or the whatever it is that you want to do, and there's no substitute for work. It's not just going to happen. You've got to be willing to invest in it. Number two, I think a mentality. It's tough because as competitors we're perfectionists, and as high achievers we're perfectionists, but you also got to be able to give some grace to yourself, give some grace to those that are around you, because it is not a linear process. And so, making sure that you understand that there's going to be some setbacks and there's going to be some failures, and how you handle those and how you learn how to navigate those while you're putting in that work is going to be important. And I would say for athletes, but probably for musicians or for anybody, like it's the time that you put in on your own. Right. It's a time that you put in on your own, and it's being disciplined. It's being detailed. There's no such thing as a small thing. I have a saying of how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yes.
And that's, whether you're throwing your trash away when you're in an airport or whether you're leaving it there for somebody else to get, like that says who you are. Whether you put your grocery cart up or you leave it out in the parking lot, like that says who you are. How you do anything is how you do everything. And there's a standard with which you do things to. And that standard for the elite is always going to be high.
Of course.
And you're probably never going to be able to reach it. And I think the other thing I would say is, and I see this a lot, particularly now, is that, we've got to have some ownership and awareness. And I say that in that not everything is always everybody else's fault. It's not always the officials. It's not always, your brother or sister, right? It's not always everybody else's fault. But taking some accountability and ownership in your part of the journey, in the things that you can control, and have an awareness of the reality of what that is. And so I would challenge parents to allow your kids those opportunities. And so I do think that that those are a couple of things that, from a mental side, that sometimes we miss. I know I did as a young player,
of course,
and as a young person. We have the benefit of age, right? And we have the benefit of experience. There's no substitute for experience. And I think the earlier we can allow our kids to have these experiences, the quicker they're going to learn it.
That's so true. That's so true. And like I said, I commend you for speaking on it, because it's such a gem and a jewel for young kids that are, aspiring to be great and getting that elite mindset from elite people and listening and understanding. So again, I can't say enough about having you on, but I do want to say this before we are off air. Steph, I've told you some things, with us together in person. But I want to say this because I know how tough it has been for you last year and, just some of the things that you've experienced on the coaching side, obviously. But I've always looked at you, Steph, as one of the smartest coaches that I've been around, and an even better human being. But from a coaching standpoint, I just really appreciate what you pour into the kids, what you pour into your players, and what we've been able to bounce back and forth, off of each other from a coaching standpoint. I really appreciate what you bring. But more importantly, as a person, Steph, you are one of those people that, again, even keel. We always are in tune. No matter what, we can always call each other, text each other, talk to each other, the highs and lows, whatever it may be. But I really, really, truly appreciate you for being a friend, for being the person that you are, for being an outstanding coach, and for obviously being a guest on my podcast. I know this is time that's taken out from your day, and I really appreciate it, Steph. I do.
No, I appreciate you, Loesch. I love you. I'm thankful for you, and you keep being great. And I do appreciate our time too. It's always nice when you have somebody that no matter how often or few and far between we talk, we can call, pick up the phone, and bounce things off of one another. So I love you. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I love you more. All right. And hopefully we'll have you back soon. Once everything blow over, the season, we'll kind of get a catch up, wrap up, whatever. All right.
That's right. Sounds good.
Okay, Steph. All right. You have a good one.
You too.
All right.
Place in front of me, I'll be victorious.